program. And we've been providing some planning guidance and trail expertise to the project for the past 18, 19 months. It's been great to work with.
Cool. Thanks, Attila. Leonard, want to chime in?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon. This is Leonard Perry. I'm with the Crown Point chapter. I was sworn in yesterday, took the oath for 4 more years. So 4 more years of being a vice president of Crown Point chapter. I'm also the Community Land Use Planning Committee president. So I got almost 4 years, 3 years left on that. And the trails project pretty much, it's always been, in the plans, but finally we're getting somewhere with it.
Cool. Thank you, Leonard. Sheldon and Latasha, I'm not sure if you guys could introduce yourselves really quick.
Good afternoon. My name is Sheldon Benali. I work with University of New Mexico Prevention Research Center. We got funding to help build some walking and running trails in the eastern part of the reservation. So we're working currently with 9 communities. Our funding is through the CDC for the next 4 years. And Crown Point is our biggest community that we're working with. Some of the other communities we're working with include like Crown Point, Nageezi, Ojo Encino, Baca Pruitt, Tohajale, among others. But Crown Point is our biggest hub right now that we're working with. And we're here to provide technical assistance and really trying to focus on the health aspects of being physically active in these communities. I also teach a public health course with Diné College, an introduction course. I'm located at the Shiprock campus. So right now we're doing all our courses through Zoom, and our classes start on Monday, the 11th. So I have 35 students so far in my class. So I'm pretty excited to meet some new students and trying to get more students involved from Diné College as well, to be part of this project from Diné College and Crown Point especially, so we can all collaborate in one way or another.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Hi, I'm the other assistant. My name is Latasha, and I am also with the UNM Prevention Research Center, and I work along Sheldon. And we are working with 9 chapters right now, and in efforts to help create and enhance trails within these communities. So I'm more than happy to be a part of this group and also to help collaborate with this project as well. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Latasha. And I think that's all we have from our committee right now. If anyone else is in the group, can you introduce yourselves really quick?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Angela Charlie, and I'm a community member, and I'm interested, so I am here.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Okay, and then I see we do have Peggy. But I'm not sure if the sound is working. She's on. Maybe you could just give us a little chat message or something, and then, but we'll proceed. For those of you who are new, and we kind of touched up on it individually of what we're kind of working on, I did send out this packet, which is really the basis of what we're trying to accomplish. So the project is the Community Trails, Crown Point. And what we're really focusing on are, improving health, education, and community outcomes, such as how do we better connect our communities with walkability paths? How do we provide healthy opportunities for community members to go out and exercise? And then how can we layer these trails with education within the community, not only at, maybe Navajo Tech and Dene College, but the high school, the middle school, even engaging the Elder Center. So we've been working on this for about the past 2 years, I would say, in collaboration with National Park Service, the Crum Point chapter, and then the UNM School of Medicine, their Healthy Places, Happy People initiative. But if you're to look at this, why we're wanting to dive into this and why we're kind of taking the approach of addressing within it is that we're seeing this as an opportunity for individuals to, connect not only with nature and being able to go out into the outdoors, but with themselves, with the animals, with the plants, with the sky. We want to be able to foster all of these different types of relationships and interacting with it. And so we really wanted to first go to the community and get their input on, how should we go about this? What trails are the best ones to first develop? And so through the process of mapping, we attended the Eastern Fair. We've had some events at NTU. We actually went to the Elder Center, a few chapter meetings. We collected that data in figuring out where individuals walk and, how they use them. Is it for exercise? Is it for mental health? Is it to relax? And from that, we ended up having a survey and then focus groups follow it, in which we wanted to, collect more in-depth information on those types of points. So as a result of it, we figured that's where the health kind of came up. I think with COVID now it's really amplified and people really kind of see the need for it with, those who are at risk populations. But, even so, diabetes, heart disease, these types of problems are things that are within the community. So long-term, we wanted to always address this. But we wanted to do that by layering in education and then having community input too. Specifically, how do we capture a lot of the, what's that? But primarily just because we wanted to capture a lot of the possible tourism outcomes that could come from formalized walking trails. We saw and did research, and about 74% of leisure travelers participate in cultural heritage tourism. So going and visiting things like Chaco Canyon, how do we get these types of people into our communities so they could stop at, Victoria's Pizza and stay at the eventual motel or hotel that's going up? How do we capture those types of dollars in town? So this project really had layered types of benefits. And from that input, we were able to develop this trail system. And one of the very first things that kind of came out is that, in identifying these, a lot of the community members, we spoke to elders, students and youth, and then parents and caretakers. And from that group, one of the things says, these should have Navajo names, they should reflect the area. And so this whole network system is based on the 4 original clans and how we identified them. If you're looking to the east and then flowing across, the Dene philosophy of education that came out of the education thing, how do we identify these? How do we connect them? And so this is what kind of came out of all of the input that we had collected. The ones that really were identified as heavy use were things like the old BIA track, which you see right here, labeled the Hanagani Trail. That was used by a lot of community members at all times of day. It was a safe place because you could walk around and feel like there's people passing by and you might not get kidnapped or anything like that. Didn't typically have to worry about dogs if you're walking through some of the neighborhoods. TP Trail, obviously. The space between us, NTU and Dene College, there was a lot of foot traffic going over to Bashes, and then the IHS from within the community. And then the last trail that was identified was up by West Mesa Housing as the 4 kind of core trails. And with it, that we were able to, pair them into city centers and figure out how, if we wanted to get from one trail to the next, how could you do it, in a safe environment? And so these were the 4 trails we had come up with. So, this is a project that has been in motion for 2 years now. I think now we're at the point where we're going to be able to put it into a cohesive plan in which we could, start building investment and going after start fundraising, and then, start engaging more with the community and, getting it going, possibly looking into youth corps or internships if we're able to generate it. So that's where we are today. And we wanted to invite all of these partners who could possibly be impacted in order to give further input, or, at least to start discussions about how we can make it happen. So before I get into the next section of this agenda, where I'm going to actually go over the Trails Network, does anybody have anything to say or contribute?
I have a question.
Yeah.
We say we're going to meet with all the stakeholders and the departments. When is that going to happen? I thought this meeting was supposed to be the one, or when is that?
Well, this was the one where we're going to at least introduce it. We had each reached out to the individuals to be here. For instance, you had told me about Lester Sosi, and then we sent out the email. A lot of them couldn't make it. So I told them that I'm recording this and we'll at least pass on the notes. But I think it's just kind of hard because it's digital right now. This was supposed to be it, but hopefully, this would be a continued conversation. And if it might take more of an effort where we reach out to them individually, like we did the last time with Lester Sosi, that's what we could do. But we did.
Because I didn't see their email on the list.
Right. I was telling Latasha earlier that I had sent out, to our core committee, the original ones, but then based off of the email you had sent me, I should have CC'd you guys onto it or something, but I sent it out to all of the other contacts, just kind of introducing myself and then kind of explaining how we got their contact and why I'm inviting them. But all of them had received it. Johanna Salago said she wasn't able to make it, but Mr. Wayne O'Donnell would be here. Lester Sosi had responded, but he just said, invite this other person that he didn't give me an email address to. So I need to get that from him again and make another attempt. But everybody that we've been collaborating with up until this point, Jimmy Toledo, who's the other individual, Jerry DeGroat, all of those individuals got the email as well.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, well, I did send this out a little earlier to you guys in the week and then to our visitors yesterday, but just to kind of go over a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing and what we're going to be pursuing. I did break down each of the trails in depth based on our, our field trip that we took out there, our boots on the ground type of suggestions. But I think as we talk about these, think about how we could be engaged with our different partners. For instance, if this is the education trail, Dene College is on one end, how can we better connect it into their campus? So if their students were crossing through to NTU or making their way over to the IHS, that could be in a safe manner, or how can we engage them in a lot of the education parts of it? But from previous conversations, we sent this out and we're talking about how this is the Kia'ani Trail. Traditionally, a lot of the teachers, the leaders, they were of the Kia'ani clan. And so we wanted to highlight that with things like recreation. If we're going to be doing, pocket parks, how could we include that identity within it with these little bear sculptures that you could walk around? But the very first section that we had discussed was possibly putting up a small parking lot here on, I think Attila had called it Mesa Road, coming here up to the IHS and then the Bashes. But we're talking about doing some parking lot here for the gateway and then using a surfacing 3/8 crusher fine surface to do this lower loop right here, where we saw a lot of NTU students, Dene College students, and community members passing through the area. So the recommendation was being able to work with BIA, Lester Sosi and Company, and developing this so we could have these and maintain these 8-foot width paths with that crusher fine surface, so it could really serve all weather purpose. But we're talking about this types of material from the resin-based stabilizer, and then addressing drainage issues to make it possible. But a lot of the recommendations you see in there, including the signage, having directional signage and key points. This is where it breaks off to Dene College or NTU. And then even incorporating low impact solar within it. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen right here, but we have little solar lights to help with night travel. So that was the main gateway we had identified in the area. On the little education loop you see here, how can we develop this between Dene College and NTU? We were talking about getting into augmented reality. And then how could we also engage community partners? So we included this little mock-up sign that would be right here on the E portion of it, where you see the landscape of it and you see different vegetations or plants. How can we bring education into it to develop it? So if you do a scan, you're learning about the different plants that are in there. If they have some types of relevance to the rug auction, maybe we could have sponsorship from them saying, visit the rug auction and learn about these different plants that contribute to these different dye colors, or how certain sandstone or sand was used to clean the wool. Those types of narratives could happen in there. So we're talking about throwing up a cool augmented reality app where you could access it and then learn about the rug auction or learn about the plants of the region, which could be a cool, community-based learning activity for Dene College's Dene Studies program or NTUs, and being able to go out there. I know when I took a class there at Dene College, that was one of the projects is we had to take a walk with our elder or our parent and then learn about the different types of vegetation that was in your area. So, those types of programs or projects could result from this and then help you appreciate the area in which you're walking. We did make certain little suggestions that were more amenity based. So not only having the interpretive signage, but then going after and improving the benches and shading within the area. We identified in this spot up here on spot F, where there was a bench that was kind of out in the sun. It was off away from the vegetation and lonely. And as you saw, it got defaced and had its shelter cut down. But we were suggesting, working within the area, throwing up more of a chasho, and then having the benches in there for resting place, because there's a lot of foot traffic that goes through within the area. So we made those types of recommendations, and even using that space and amenities to block unwanted footpaths. There's about 3 paths that converge at this area down here in G. And then we did provide different types of recommendations, but I think for here, because you were thinking about the users who passes through, I know several times when we've done walks, we saw IHS professionals come in and do loops on the trail. So including health-based motivational signage as well, reminding people if you run for an hour, you could burn off that one Navajo burger you ate for lunch. Keep it up, keep going, maybe download a health app sponsored by Navajo Nation Special Diabetes. Again, that's where we bring in these partners and how do we improve the signage, these functions of this trail, so it benefits everyone within the community. So this is one example of what we had done for Kia'ani Trail. We did do a more in-depth packet, and I did email it to our partners, Lister Sosi and then Joanna Salago, that showed more of the I guess you should say the field report that goes into it a little bit more, because again, we were quite limited on our packet, but you'll see this was a multiple page, 7-page packet on Kia'ani Trail that talked about, all right, how do we have crosswalks going over to Bashes or the hotel if that's going to happen. Here's the recommendations that we had put up. Or on that Mesa Trail, go to Dene College. There's really no barriers if you're going to be connecting from Bashes to the trailhead start. So how can we maybe put up a little side pedestrian path on that road to Dene College, again, for safety purposes. So we did email this out to everyone. So hopefully this will give you a little bit more in-depth information. Attila did a better job of kind of fleshing out everything that needs to be in place, included putting in parking bollards so there isn't ATVs and cars going through here, endangering our eventual walkers. So that was the Kia'ani path for everybody. And as Leonard had mentioned, that's entirely on executive order land.
Yeah, you may want to make a note of that. 1359, pretty much all of it is on executive order land. You see that H, you can see the straight line going down.
Right.
That's from towards the east. It's all executive order.
This way until it gets to Dene College, right?
Yeah.
executive order too.
Daniel, I think NTU was contracting out for a 100-year floodplain study. Are they going to be involved in this whole area?
Yeah, I know that they were supposed to present at the land use, or Jason was, right?
Yeah, I did ask him. I haven't heard from him.
They had another meeting. He said he's going to try to jump on at the end of this, but they're going to be on, now that this packet's done, I did forward along to them, and Dr. Guy and Jason are aware of it. So somehow I'm sure it's going to be brought up, and you know, if you want to attend our cabinet meeting when we discuss it.
That'd be great because, you know, the Net College has about 50 acres and NTU has about 70, I think it was 78 acres. So you have two land base right there that's going to be really affected by that floodplain situation.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know whenever we have our cabinet meeting, and you could, you know,
Okay.
re-raise that concern. But these are just kind of the quick points. I hope it gives everyone a good glimpse of, you know, we want it to be educational. We want it to serve leisure, different use. You know, maybe elders would be out here walking and have a good place to sit. You know, I included that same design up here. You know, this could be an outdoor learning space. I know with COVID, NTU, you know, you don't want to be in indoors, so we do different things, and this could serve that kind of function, especially if it's on Kia'ani Trail. And then again, it's kind of designed towards the Chash'o, the shade house. So we want to incorporate Navajo design or Navajo feel within it, or even within the region, like you see down here, making it kind of that Chaco culture. Was there any other questions or comments on about this? Anyone from Dene College? I see that the, okay, I see that Peggy.
I put a comment in that.
Go ahead, Attila.
I just put a comment in the box that, you know, building on Leonard's comment, we should have a section in the plan about devoted to explaining the various land status within Crown Point and who we talk to for approval of these different segments. So it's pretty clear.
Okay.
That's something we hadn't put in there yet, but that would be a useful little piece in the plan of that. If it's executive order, here's who you talk to. If it's trust, here's who you talk to. If it's an allotment, here's who you have to talk to.
Leonard, is that something you could put together for
Yeah,
us?
we can do that because each executive order, federal land, and then the trust land, you know, here you have different procedures, policies.
Yeah.
A has their CFR, Navajo Trust has their land department. So, you know, you have two areas that have different outlooks on how to proceed with certain developments. But yeah, there is a difference between the land status and how we can develop.
Okay.
Does the land use committee, Leonard, already have that kind of spelled out, written out on who we talk to or who you would talk to in these different projects?
Yeah, we usually work with the land department on most of the legal stuff and the exact area specifications. For the BIA, I know Jerry DeGroot is very knowledgeable, so it's good to have him on board.
Okay.
Maybe we can have a separate meeting from our larger committee group, you know, Leonard and anyone who wants to participate in just kind of fleshing all those out in something like this.
Well, we might have a Club C meeting next week, and maybe we can get the entities or the departments involved and talk about the land status for that area and just see what they come up with, just to get an idea of how we can better develop, get into a lot of trouble and going against any kind of barriers.
Okay. Yeah, put me on the agenda if you can. And
Okay.
I know that Latasha wanted to attend last time, but
Yes.
got canceled.
I did. I wanted to still attend that meeting as well, especially if it's regarding like the different types of land statuses. not only just for this community, but also with some of the communities that we'll be working with. I think it's important to know, which land belongs to who, and this is going to be like an ongoing issue for us as well. So it'd be good for us to get that information and also to attend the meeting. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah,
I was gonna put Jason Arvizo on the agenda pertaining to the flooding issue and see where that's at. Because what I was thinking of, it's not just what they were going to do, study on NTU's acreage, but I think we need to look at the whole area in that flooding zone.
Mhm.
right.
Yep.
Okay. Send me a notice or something I could forward along to Jason too.
Okay,
The
well,
new operations manager, he might be joining us at the end of this meeting as well, but he would be a good person to contact as well. I'll give you his email.
Hey, Daniel, for the trails that run, which part of the trails run on or near the Diné College campus in Crown Point?
If you look at this map right here, I'm going to zoom in. Oops, chat box. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. It was that stretch we had done on the back end. So here's Diné College. Here's their parking lot right here. And then we started by going across up here. This is that stretch right here. But if you took the left, in this picture, there's a gate, there's a fence line. It's basically going down that entire fence line. So where we had proposed, Peggy and for everyone who's going to be watching this from Diné College, we proposed putting in a temporary or some type of parking lot right here that can fit about 4 or 5 vehicles, since it's already kind of where people are accessing it right now. So that's if we could collaborate with Diné College and how do we get that started, even if we have to bring in Navajo Department of Transportation, is a conversation we'd need to have. And then we also talked about their little gate opening that's right here. We mentioned that's a nice little way to get, in and out and keep the cattle out, but it leads directly towards a watershed, which is an unsustainable trail right here. So we're talking about if we could connect, how we could maybe do it down here. I know that they did put up a new fence line that before a lot of students and walkers used to go right here in this black line right here, I'm sorry. The black line, and it would go over into past their little dumpster and then into their parking lot. But since then that this fence line has been closed, but we're talking about this possibly being a good way to have another way to engage this community down here into accessing the trail. So how can we, connect it in this region? So this whole area right here is, on the fence line of Diné College. But I think we really want to expand that, and they have students, who possibly go through this area. How can we make this safe for them? They might have their own experiences or contributions that might improve this trail as a whole, that we could talk about. So we want to be able to engage them not only in figuring out this part, but the whole system as well.
Okay, and I'm sure there's students that go to both schools too, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are. Okay, well, just for the purpose, just to finish these off, we did finish and contribute or finish going. After the Kiani Trail, we were focusing on the old BIA track. So we had dubbed it the Hanagani Trail just because it's the ones who walked around. Naturally you think about that with the track. But there are also, a lot of health things associated with the clan. And so we wanted it to be able to have multi-uses within this space. So here's just kind of an example gateway signage talking about the different users who could access the trail. We're talking about designating another thing that connects into the larger trail network, but then also having rules and regulations about what you can do, maybe things regarding trash, because we had experienced some complaints about that. But basically the idea behind this area is that we would improve the surfacing of this track to include something similar towards what's up at the high school. We had heard during the listening sessions that they don't really accept any community members up on the track anymore, which was high use in the past. But we wanted to be able to use this, possibly rubberizing it So it's year-round walking type of opportunities. A lot of elders had mentioned using this track because of it's being good on their knees. And then, like I said, they can put in some ear pods and feel safe because you have eyes on you. You're not up in the middle of nowhere. So we were talking about improving that surfacing, possibly including some motivational signage, and then including low impact solar lighting as well. One of the things that came from the communities and is reiterated on their Facebook page is that we don't want to compromise the night sky. So we wanted to have low impact lighting in there that could help with the early dawn and dusk type of walkers. But then we also talked about including different types of pocket parks within this. So in each of the corners of this track, how can we put something in there? So we were talking about, the Dene philosophy of education from stuff we heard during the listening sessions, and including, how can we include activities or programs that deal towards, toddlers to kids to adults to elders. And so we're talking about designating each of these pockets in that manner, going from east to west to south, or east to south, to west to north. And so we had this Netzakes pocket for the kids, having their swing set. Then going down into Nahat'a, having this kind of like little climbing spider web. And then something a little bit more rigorous for the adults, possibly doing pull-up bars. And then at the end, having balanced type of activities for the elders. And I did kind of a cheap little fence here, but the idea was to also kind of cave it or close in this space. You could look in this picture, there's some ATV or some tire tracks going through. So we want to be able to discourage any type of cars going through there and disrupting, the type of activities in there. We want to encourage a lot of families to be there, but also have space where we could put in a big old playground in the middle of it. So you have eyes in the center. So grandparents or parents could watch their kids as they play and then get their exercise in. So these are kind of cheap renderings, just generic type of, playground equipment. But the idea would be to maybe make it regarding the protection animal of the Hanagani clan, which is the cougar, the mountain lion. So maybe this could be a cool little mountain lion type of park for kids where they could climb and do all those types of things. But the last thing we really included within this is looking at this old softball field that they had here in town. And we're talking about maybe doing a pump track. I removed it for this one because we're identified possibly up by the high school and the abandoned basketball courts that could possibly be a suitable location with the pump track in conjunction or in partnership with ODY. But we're talking about doing maybe a basketball court with the dog park, so filling in that space. I'm going to speed through this really quick just because we're kind of short on time. But Leonard, this is obviously BIA land right here. That's who we.
Yeah, just one comment here.
Yes.
I did run that track a few times, but there's really no doesn't tell you how far you've gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know that 4 laps is 1 mile, but they don't know it. So
Right.
maybe we can put signs in there stating, like in the metric system, this is how far it is or mileage, and then tell them, 1 lap is a 1/4 mile, 2 laps is 1/2 mile, so they know, they can keep up with it.
Right. And that's something that maybe we could return with our Avenza app and then have them track it. I know David and Felicia have been doing a lot of the walking, but then maybe do this outskirt of it. That might be the closer measure. But that would be a good thing once we actually get it up, having those things into play. It's not showing on here because we only focused on the trail itself. But for our visitors, we also had made the recommendation of doing a second loop, which you see here in the black. And this is still part of the trail, but not the main trail. But we wanted to also include this as the outer loop and then getting the distance on this as well. So if you wanted to break from your, monotonous circle around this loop, you could go out and go into the inner loop. But at the same time, to include some of that interpretive signage like we had seen here, where we're learning about plants and vegetation, having that same type of technology to learn inwards about the old BIA boarding school, maybe having architecture come in and then recreate what the old gym looked like, or if they had, a community event that happened here, a chicken pool or something, we could talk about that history. But eventually, this whole outer loop would lead towards connecting to other types of trails that connect the community. So this is the connection that comes from Education Trail that goes to the chapter house. We cross over and then go over towards our next trail as well, but then using this space. That would require working with Navajo.
So scroll to that, just scroll up a little bit to the trailhead map or so Leonard, on that 3-part map there, for that 3-part sign, one of those would describe each one of the loops, the distance on each one of the loops. It might, talk about grade, if it's flat or so forth. So there'd be user information on that trail, along with the map of that particular one. The other piece we might want to do somewhere in there, and this is all conceptual, but as a community board on that, hey, the senior walking group is here on Thursdays at 9 to kind of build a social support network for who's on trails when, and hey, there's gonna be a basketball game here whenever. So having those as one of those signs would be a kind of a good strategy. But each one of the main welcome, you're here signs will have information about the length of the trail, how many loops it is, how far you climb, elevation loss. So people can determine whether they can use it or not. And that's the pattern and trend we're seeing in accessibility for trails. It's not all easy, intermediate, or difficult. It's because what is easy for me could be difficult for Daniel, perhaps. So it's really about what the experience is, and our job as trail planners and managers to tell people, here's the experience, and you determine whether or not you can do it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and this is just kind of the framework. Ideally, once we get more community feedback, I know once we did the post on the howler, Felicia got a lot of feedback when we were talking about the trail system. We want to take all of this stuff back to the community and say, all right, maybe a swing isn't the best idea, or this little spider web climb thing. What do you want to see in those pocket parks? That's something that we have to go back and nail down too. These are just ideas or concepts, but ideally we'll go back and get these types of information too. And as we get more people invested, it'd be nice to hear what Dene College would say, or the Elder Center again. That type of thing can be adjusted towards what we hear back from the community. But the concept is just having little pocket activities here.
Yep.
Okay. Good. The third trail was Totachini Trail, best known as teepees. Again, having those types of signage at the trailhead. We're talking about starting at the Old Christian Reformed Church in partnership. But if we had to go down into the pockets of this neighborhood down here or off the main road, those could be explored to have their own individual parking lot. But at the very beginning, talking about how different types of rec or community space where people would do a picnic, or if they don't want to go all the way up the trail, kind of just enjoying the beginning. So we're talking about a low scale, maybe one picnic table once you're going up. And then once you get on top, having a good community space. Leonard talked about back in the day, all the way up at teepees, they used to have picnic tables. But if we could kind of bring that closer towards the front, you could have community events, family parties, etc. up here. And we did include Sheldon's little grill. So if you see them right there, having things like that where you can have people, engaging and being part of community again. But that came again out of the listening sessions. Of having that type of space along the trail. We did identify different spots. So if you're going up TP, having little things again like the AR, the augmented reality, learning about key historic sites. So here's a get to know the area, overlooking the old, the coal mine. And Leonard, this is something that, again, if we could get from you, maybe even just a half a page, 250 words about each of these locations. We could start mocking those up, what it would look like if you put it into your phone or if you're interacting with it. And it'd just be talking about a lot of the stuff you tell us anyways, like they used to take the coal to the old boarding school and, tell those types of narratives. And then we could start putting together those things. But, using signage to really feature the area and why it's important, including things like benches along the way. Let me zoom in on this one a little bit. But you see along the pathway, people had their own little makeshift benches already in place. I think it'd be best just to leave it and then just have little benches for other people. kind of uniquely positioned. And then again, having more signage featuring things like this Hogan here. You'll see kind of how it would work. If you had your phone, you would scan this little QR code, and then it'd pop up in your phone, and you get to learn about, what a Hogan is. Or if we work with NTU's BIM program, they could do little CAD files to show holograms of what it would look like if it were built back in the day. So incorporating technology again for education. And then we were talking about really featuring and highlighting the bike paths that are up here. If you guys haven't seen it, man, it's really cool because they have a whole bunch of banks and even little bridges and just every little cool detail you could find with this bike path. And it starts towards the end of it when you get in towards BLM land, but it goes all the way along the brim of the mesa. And it's a little bit longer. And it curves back around, but it connects it to a really cool, intricate biking path. The main thing that we want to do is because we did hear during our listening session, some people almost get hit, or if you got your earpods in, you don't know someone's coming. There are certain points along this trail where we want to put up signs like this, watch for bikers, keep left, because this is where they zoom out over here on the right. But then also include little motivational messages again, rest area ahead, keep it up, 1 mile to go. Sponsored by Behavioral Health. And then again, signage identifying those trails. This one in the bottom, if you were to zoom in on it. This is when you're turning back and then you go towards that big old hill. This is where that path started. So having little directional signage is in there. Mountain bike trail to the left, experienced bikers only, 2.5 mile loop. Again, detailing the length. So if somebody wanted to do that on bike, they know what they're getting into. But then also have things like this way back towards parking, whatever it might be. But the main thing about this was leaving it natural, keeping the natural beauty of it, but then incorporating a lot of signage or information about the area, because you have your 1,000-year-old crypto soil up there that you don't want to break, having little things like that to feature the environment and keep people on trail and appreciating the beauty that's around. So that was Totachini Trail. And then our last trail was the West Mesa up on the hill. And this is where we wanted to, coordinate with ODY because they have plans of doing a trail of their own down here. So how could we connect this trail system in with theirs and then connect it to the health center, which you see our potential connector up here. But we included that same signage, having hours, having gateways, established gateways over here in the West Mesa housing. Then over by the softball field, we wanted to do pocket parks again. So here you can see the little renderings of the little climb playground types of equipment. We wanted to keep it authentic towards the clan, which the protection animal for the Hashkurusne clan is the porcupine. So you have the little mock-ups of this looking like they're porcupine quills along the area. But these pocket parks we're supposed to serve these communities back here as well, including things like benches and again that interpretive signage, getting to know the area. This is where you bust out your phone and learn about this old defensive site here in the background and how it was used by Navajos for protection. Also bring in little cool narratives like the jailbreak guys who busted out of jail in Crown Point and then climbed up on this mountain and had no way to get down, so they had to turn themselves in, telling those narratives again. Leonard, if you could tell them. Again, including the picnic area, possibly where they have a cool overlook site here. And then in the area on the bottom, probably second phase 2, going into doing adventure tourism, developing it for biking, as you can see down here, and then connecting that into the trail. So, wow, that kind of took a long time, but I don't think we've all went over it, but that's the trail system we've determined. We want to be able to provide the other, supplementary packages to the community whenever we address these, but we need to start thinking about where could we post this, posting it not only on Howler, but then also in high traffic areas in town, putting them into poster size and leave opportunities for people to comment again. But that's the trail system. Does anyone have any questions or input in regards to that?
Hey, Daniel. So I had recommended the grill because I actually went to one of the trails that Navajo Yes had built with Tom Riggenbach's group. And we had invited them to a meeting of ours a couple of months ago, and they had told us about one of their trails they built west of Shiprock in Biglavato. And they said that trail was one of their more advanced trails. So I went out there like last month and I looked at it, and I saw the grills there. So that's why I recommended the grills. But they also have some really nice signage on their trails that they built there. But my question is about the signage. I know this is probably something later down the road, but how do you design these signs for the trails, and what are the costs for these signs that go on these trails? Because they're really nice and they're really designed very so that the sun does not like burn them or they don't get faded and so forth. So I'm just a little curious. Maybe Attila, you might have that kind of information available to what the costs are for signs that are put on these trails, because I always enjoy looking at them and reading them, and some of them talk about protecting the plants as well, and just keeping on the trails too. So I'm just a little curious about signage and the costs and the availability of companies that actually make these signs.
Yeah, let somebody
There's
jump in.
there's tons of companies that make the signs, and tons of materials from aluminum to steel to plastic to fiberglass. So, most of the wayside exhibits you see in national parks are kind of fiberglass. And the key to this, though, is when let's say we want 6 waysides telling the stories of the coal mine or the guys who got lost or whatever it is. The key to that is, as a land manager and a trail manager, is buying extra copies up front. So if one does get vandalized, you can replace it instead of going through a whole requisition process all over again. And almost everyone forgets to buy extra copies. And by the time you need it, you've lost the original, the company's out of business, or they've lost the original and you start all over again. But so going back to this, if you're using the QR codes, if you're using the QR codes in different smaller pieces, then your signs can be smaller, recognize that people can use digital media to see the bigger piece. So some of these larger ones do have some cost, but they can be done with, normal timber. You could use landscape timbers or railroad ties. I just had people in TRC or Tucumcari do a huge entry sign with railroad ties and 4x8 sheet of plywood. So we don't have to go so high tech, but you also don't want to look at trashy. And you can also use, for some of these directional signs, you can use the Carcinite post, the flexible brown post you see on Forest Service lands and other places that are kind of boundary markers. So there's low-tech ways to start, and then high-tech ways to, phase 1 or phase 2 as you find more funding. I will say, though, that, as things are coming together in the state with recreation and trails, I'd go for a good system and see what you can get.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I was just mocking up these ones right here based off of this document I found. Again, all of these things are just kind of the examples. I think eventually as a committee, we'll have to come down and have these discussions and talk about all of the different factors that goes into the signage. I know even there's anti-graffiti type of technology out there that prevents those types of things. So eventually, these will change, but this is just the concept and kind of how it lays out. But I laid this down just because this is probably something that if NTU students, go off of, they could probably follow these and make it themselves. And they have a plasma cutter now and all these different types of technologies that could help us out too if they design these to be adaptable, so you can maybe take out different types of frames or whatever. I think
the could be the animal silhouettes for each one of the signs too with the plasma cutter. So maybe you take this whole project to NTU art class and the metal classes and let them figure out what would work and what would be cool. And then community pride, you get community pride in the whole thing, and it won't get vandalized.
But I know a big thing that we want to do is incorporate the technology too, so you can minimize the amounts of space or whatever you have for signs. So if it gets to the point where you just have to have a little thing that has the QR code on it, people will know they can pull up their phone and then have the information given to them through their technology devices too. And I think that's where we could get creative, partnering with Dene College or ODY, or how could we, come up with a cool app that maybe once you go to the Hanagani Trail, you have cool little games. Clifton Robinson ran 5 miles here days ago. Here's our leaderboard for the Hanagani track. Try to beat his thing, or
Yeah.
here's a meal that you could attach with this walk that you're doing here that helps you burn calories. So I think that's where we want to do, is pair not only these signs with the physical signs, but with technology, so you can expand what's displayed or what kind of program is coming from it. Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock. I don't want to keep anybody much longer. But Peggy doesn't have her microphone working. The main reason why we wanted to bring Dene College in, and Jimmy Toledo and Office of Dene Youth and Lester Sosi, is we wanted to introduce this project, so moving forward we could collaborate more and figuring out how we could layer resources or work together and finding out the best way to access Dene College from this trail network, so your students could benefit from it, community members, etc. So I think as a committee, we need to have another meeting again, individually or as a group, with Lester Sosi again, Jimmy Toledo, and then presenting this, or maybe it's us going to them, getting on the agenda for their next meeting. But I think that's something that we have to do, because that collaboration is a big part of it. And in that discussion, we need to start thinking about what happens next. So this is something that Attila had shared from the very beginning. I know that Leonard had said this is wrong, this is out of date, whatever, but maybe we could revisit this again and figure out, all right, once we know about having executive order land and we have to bring in Jerry DeGroat, maybe we can make our own custom one where we start, all right, land withdrawal, who do we have to go to for each of these? But we need to start thinking about the biological clearance, the archaeological clearance, etc. as well. So this is something that needs to be on the horizon. I'll send this out in an email again. But can we maybe as a group meet, as a committee, meet in 1 week and then invite the individuals again? I'll send out the email myself to Lester and Joanna, and I know Peggy, if you could relay it back towards Wayne and everybody, saying that maybe in 2 weeks we'll meet again and we'll further and expand on this conversation and figure out, how do we move forward from there? But what does the committee think about that? Maybe you just meet as a committee in 1 week and then try again with these community partners in 2.
That sounds good.
Okay,
That works for me.
So that's next Thursday. I got to meet till 3:30, but I can jump on at 3:30.
that'll be good.
Daniel,
Yes,
I think it'd be good to invite the land department. They're situated right across the senior citizen. They have an office right there.
can you,
They would know about all this land withdrawal.
okay. Can you send me their email or whoever?
Yeah.
you send there?
I can. Also, you were asking about the narratives on the historic areas. I do have all the articles from the Crown Point Bahanet newsletter, articles on a disc. They're all on a disc. So maybe you can make a copy and look at it yourself. You can see all the articles that were made pertaining to history here.
Okay,
Yeah, you can use what you need. It was free. It's not copyrighted.
all right, cool.
So on that note, if I got a couple of announcements real quick. One is I had a meeting yesterday with the superintendent at Aztec Ruins, who's also the superintendent of Chaco Cultural National Historic Park. And she's very interested and has met with Lester Sosi in the past about gateway planning, and Park Service is interested in helping, if there's a hotel there and there's need for gateway planning to be a gateway to Chaco culture, Park Service is very interested in that. I also suggested that maybe some of the interpretive specialists that need experience in working on wayside exhibits could help develop the story based on the story you give us to, do some of that narrative writing that we're supposedly pretty good at doing these wayside exhibits. So Park Service, I think we get some additional help there at for the waysides and also potentially helping teach classes at NTU either on how to be a guide, do guide services at Chaco and other places. So starting to make a better connection between adjacent public lands and Chaco and Crown Point. The second piece, I'm trying to set up a meeting right now with Tom Ridenbach and with Chas Robles with Ancestral Lands Corps. As we move to implementation, I think both those programs could be very good for implementation. So I'm trying to set up a date with right now with Daniel, Leonard, and Rita, and then as we get a date set, we'll invite the rest of you guys to sit on the call to learn about Navajo Yes, so we know more about that group. And the third piece is I'm pushing, there's interest in creating a Indian Youth Service Corps, similar to Conservation Corps, but basically for Native American communities across the country. And I'm strongly pushing the Washington office that I think I've got a good project for an Ancestral Lands Corps at Crown Point where it could be seasonal or year-round employment with half of the work going towards building your trails and half of it maybe preservation work at Chaco culture, looking at job opportunities, career opportunities for Crown Point youth in the national park system. So I'm pushing that heavily, try to get funding to create a youth corps in Crown Point.
Cool.
Oh,
I want to start that Google Doc, Attila, where we start laying out funding opportunities or programming
Yeah.
opportunities. So maybe we could get that going and then share that with everybody. If we could include that on there, but I think that'd be great. That's something we need to start turning that page. And as we engage these partners too, I'm chipping away at the booklet that's going to be more expanded, where we address land status, where we address those data points that Sheldon was talking about. But I think once we have that one, then we'll be able to go after everything. I don't think there's going to be anything that could stop us. So we'll get that document going.
right. And we still have the outline for the plan itself that we can still help people can populate parts of that outline.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we're 8 minutes past due. I don't want to keep anybody much longer. So we'll meet next Thursday at 3. And if you have to come in late, that's fine. But from now until then, I'll send out another email for the 21st. So the meeting after next, we'll plan on engaging Lester Sosi again and Jerry DeGroat and Miss Lago if she's able to attend, and Miss Peggy if you could attend as well, or however we work that out, that's when we want to aim for those. But by next week, Leonard, if you could at least give me those narratives and then start talking about what we're talking about, the land statuses. I'll start incorporating that into the packet as well.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you next week. Be safe and no rioting and storming any capitals out there, Leonard.
Right. Don't resign from your post yet, Leonard. 4 more years.
I'm surprised my challenge didn't go through. I put in a challenge for VP saying, hey, I don't think it was fair. Okay. Well, I recorded this. I'm going to upload it on YouTube and I'll send it out. Bye, guys.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.